Christmas. You may have gathered that. It's the time after the celebration of the birth of Christ in Bethlehem, and it's before the observance of Epiphany, which happens on January 6th, which is to commemorate when the wise men actually showed up. Sometimes it's called Twelfth Night. Shakespeare wrote a play called Twelfth Night. It's a comedy, because by the time you get to 12th day of Christmas, you're ready for a comedy. January 6th is also when many of our friends in the Eastern and Russian Orthodox churches celebrate Christmas Eve. It's a calendar thing, actually. But around here, Epiphany is sort of conflated with Christmas. And when I think of Christmas, I sort of go back to the days when I was a kid, and Christmas morning was the time you wound up, you started off in pajamas, and you wound up with your new shoes and your new sweater. You knew everything. Putting these on makes me want to sing something like, "It's a stifling day in the neighborhood." Certainly the warmest Christmas I can remember. And the temperature is pretty good too. Now, Fred was right, this is better. So, even though we're after Christmas, I'm still thinking about presents. Presents are part of Christmas, at least they are in this land. You look at the stores, there's not much about the nativity or anything like that, but there's lots of stuff about presents. Basically, I'm happy that I found all the presents I had stashed away in various corners of the house. There's usually one that I miss, and that's true this year. I did leave one at the office. But pretty much I got all the others. At the same time, I spent a little time remembering previous holidays when I was a little kid getting presents. This was about the time Caesar Augustus died. Remember? And I got to tell you a story. It's a story that really doesn't have a date. Unlike telling you, say, about the year I finally got my own K&E slide rule, which would have a date. This doesn't have a date. In this case, probably the best Christmas present I remember getting as a child was one I never received. And there's a story, not a long one, but it's a story for the times. When I was in grammar school, now you call it middle school, I was in 7th grade to be exact, I was into, I know this is hard to imagine, I was into track. I was a sprinter. And presaging an interest in documenting my training, I wanted to measure my progress. I was running 100-yard dashes and trying to get my time under 10 seconds. Maybe under 30 seconds. It doesn't make any difference. I wanted to measure that. And I couldn't really rely on the times that Bernie Kopp, this guy who looked like a fire hydrant with an attitude, who was the track coach, he would yell out the times as you went whipping by. But I wanted to know, did I run a 17.5 or 17.2? It would make a difference. I wanted to know my times. I needed a stopwatch. You know, the kind they have on the opening credits to 60 Minutes. That kind, that exact kind, as a matter of fact. So I went online, which meant looking in catalogs and ads in newspapers. I could have checked out the sporting goods stores, but the nearest one to where we lived about 8 miles away in the next big town. And when you're 13, you just can't hop in the station wagon, say, "See you later, Mom, I'm going shopping." So it was getting around Christmas time, and I started to make my desires known. Over breakfast, I'd say, "Hey, I really like a stopwatch for Christmas. What do you say?" Or, "I'll bet I could improve my performance a lot quicker if I could time myself. How about a stopwatch?" Or, "I'll bet Jesse Owens' mom gave him a stopwatch for Christmas." Got that? I wanted a stopwatch more than Andy Warhol wanted a tomato can. And I was trying to be helpful. It was the least I could do. Now, you need to know that I consider some of this a waste of time. There were 4 kids in my family. My father was an architect, and at the time, the only celebrity architect was Frank Lloyd Wright. My mother was a homemaker. So what we usually got from our parents was stuff that we needed. Fresh underwear, socks, new pair of pants, a white button-down shirt, a new 3-ring binder, that sort of stuff. My grandparents were usually tasked with getting us the kinds of things that were not quite in the local budget. A new blue blazer, dress shoes, pricey stuff, 3 wise men kind of stuff. That left my Aunt Joan. Aunt Joan didn't play the what do they need game. She listened to what we wanted, not what we needed. So she was the one with big, full shopping bags filled with toys. I figured if I had a chance at a stopwatch, she'd be it. But did she know? Had I remembered to tell her? Did my parents pass it on? Could she read it in the stars? When I thought about it, she tended to get toys that she liked. A Viewmaster, Etch-a-Sketch, a Frisbee, Silly Putty, or Swinky, or, not my favorite, Mr. Potato Head. The original Mr. Potato Head was called that because you used a real potato and you stuck plastic things into the sides of it. This my mother got tired of quickly because we were ruining perfectly good food. If any of you have trouble imagining what these toys were, I can tell you later. You see, the stopwatch wasn't a toy. I wanted a real, functional, accurate stopwatch, accurate to a tenth of a second. It made a difference. Mind you, I adored my aunts, actually, both of them, but the other aunt also had 4 kids, and she relied on Joni to hit the toy stores for them too. Suffice it to say that I was moderately hopeful but not confident. Maybe like going to the dentist, knowing that you've brushed every day and flossed at least once a month. You're hopeful that you're not going to have a cavity, but you're not entirely confident. So, big day arrived, and we knocked on our parents' door at 7 o'clock in the morning, as permitted by a negotiated agreement. Couldn't it be 7:30 just this one year? No, please, all right. Bathrobes for everybody, down to the kitchen. We had a ranch house, and down those 3 little stairs, the end of the hall. Breakfast, or at least a semblance of it, Christmas coffee cake, your cereal of choice, a glass of juice. And after that, when the coffee was ready for Mom and Dad, we lined up around the corner to the living room. And then, coffee in hand, my father went in to check the scene and, I suppose, turn on the Christmas tree lights. The living room had a fireplace and a chimney, which we thought could be used by Santa if he had chugged a lot of Slim Fast. In any event, on Christmas morning, the little table with the milk, the cookies, and the carrots for the reindeer was always bare, except for a thank you note from the jolly old elf, written in a hand that looked suspiciously familiar. Dad came back. We were sitting there radiant with excitement, announced that all was well, so in we went. Everyone immediately scoped out the scene and then retreated to their customary places. My job, I was the oldest kid, was the hander-outer of presents, but people got to say, I want that one, or I want that one. So we picked inward from youngest to oldest. My 5-year-old sister got to pick first, and she generally bailed to the biggest thing she could see. When my youngest brother, Rodney, followed by Stu, followed by me, followed by my mother and father, that was one entire turn. 3 or 4 times around we would go till we hit what we called the end of the trail. The stopwatch wasn't there. I could tell that within 30 seconds of entering the room, because I knew exactly how big a box it would have been in. And most of my boxes were sort of flat, rectangular, shaped oddly like shirts. White shirt, 3 pairs of socks, underwear, that stuff. But it was all right, because the big haul was in the afternoon. Still, sometimes, when we reached the end of the trail, either my mother or my father would scratch their chins and say, you know, I think there's something else, I can't remember. And then someone, often me, would be dispatched to another room to fetch the surprise gift that everyone had actually been waiting for, hoping it was for them. That was how my brother got his bicycle. It was parked on the porch, so my mother said, hey, Trent, I can't remember. There might be something outside next to the kitchen door. Outside. And so off I went. And when I returned with a red Schwinn bicycle just Stuart's size, his eyes nearly popped right out of his head. We loved that kind of thing, even if the forgotten present wasn't for us. Then for a very few relaxed couple of hours, we just talked and passed presents around. We tried on shirts, we made notes about hemming the pants, we admired the tie, we complimented the gift givers on their particularly good taste. We finished off the coffee cake. We had another cup of coffee, and we just sat around. Grandparents and Joni arrived about 4 in the afternoon, which was enough time to clean up the living room, change our clothes, for heaven's sake, put on the new shirt, and get the chicken a la king casserole going for dinner. Then it was the same deal all over again, with munchies, various beverages of mixed origin for everyone, and a round of gifts. And it was there, astonishingly, I found a square, neatly wrapped box with my name. Inside, smiles all around, I opened up my new stopwatch. To this day, I don't remember if it was my grandparents or my aunt, but no matter, there it was. It was not exactly the one I had in mind, but close enough. Close enough. Well, the rounds were over and the toys were being played with. My father then announced, wait, he thought there was one more. It was in the hall closet down by the bedroom and had a red bow on it. Trip, would you go fetch it? So I went up the stairs, and skipping back down the hall, I slid open the door, pushed aside some clothes. And sure enough, behind the shoes, there was a sweater-sized box with my grandmother's name on it. I was just pulling it out when I spied something else. The something else was just a light brown paper bag, but had a logo on it. Sun Sporting Goods, East 23rd Street, New York City, right across the street from my father's office. I peeked inside the bag. It was the exact stopwatch I had in mind. Exact. I put it back, took the present with the nice red bow, and delivered it to my grandma. It was a nice cardigan sweater, it was beautiful, and she loved it. But I sat in my chair in the living room with the biggest inside smile you can possibly imagine. My father had gotten me the stopwatch just in case my grandparents or my aunt didn't come through. He didn't mention it. I couldn't mention it. But that present, the one I never got, was the best present ever. Because it wasn't the present at all. It was the gift. Listen to the Apostle Paul. He writes a thank you note. It's a note for an offering he received from the Philippians to take to the young church in Jerusalem. He writes, "You Philippians indeed know that in the early days of the gospel, no church shared with me in the matter of giving and receiving except you alone. For even when I was in Thessalonica, you sent me help for my needs more than once. Not that I seek the gift, but I seek the profit that accumulates to your account. I have been paid in full and have more than enough. I am fully satisfied now that I have received the gifts you sent, a fragrant offering, a sacrifice acceptable and pleasing to God. The greater gift I received was the insurance present my father purchased so that he knew I would get my 13-year-old's heart's delight. He was watching out for me. Quietly, I knew he had my back. That made all the difference. I had been seeking the gift, but you know, a stopwatch is just a stopwatch. But out of love, I received the spiritual profit that was that afternoon deposited into my account. And as I said, neither one of us ever said a thing. We didn't have to. And thank God for that. Amen. Number